Well, good morning, Abundant Life. Good to be with you in spirit, I guess, for now. But I wanted to share with you some thoughts this morning from Matthew 26, and then I want to do a time of communion as a part of this morning, and then to finish, I would like to sing a song together, and hopefully you'll be joining us where you are. But come with me to Matthew 26, and this is some interesting territory. We have Jesus doing the Last Supper with his disciples. So Matthew 26, we'll pick it up in verse 23. This is the Lord's Supper, and he's starting to say somebody's going to betray me, and they're asking the question, it's not me, is it? Is it me? Is it me? In verse 23, Jesus says, the one who has dipped his hands into the bowl with me will betray me. The Son of Man will go just as it is written about him, but woe to that man who betrays the Son of Man. For it would be better for him if he had not been born. Then Judas, the one who would betray him, said, Rabbi, surely not I, is it? Jesus answered, yes, it is you. While they were eating, Jesus took bread. I don't know if it quite looked like that, but that's what we've got this morning. He took bread and he gave thanks. I'll come back to that in just a second. He broke it, knowing that was actually going to be, it was a prophetic act of himself. And he gave it to his disciples, saying, take this and eat. This is my body. And then he took the cup, and again he gave thanks. We'll come back to that. And he offered it to them. That again is a prophetic act and a statement of what he was about to do, because after this is Gethsemane. Drink from it, all of you. This is my blood of the covenant. Covenant. Wow. Which is poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins. I tell you, I will not drink of this fruit of the vine from now on until the day when I drink it anew with you in my Father's kingdom. Verse 30, when they had sung a hymn, they went out to the Mount of Olives. Then Jesus predicts Peter's denial, and Gethsemane he's arrested, and we know the basics of the rest of the story. But I wanted to come back to a couple of things. Towards the end of last year, I heard somebody who was doing a teaching on the word, and they said, first thing you need to know about reading the scriptures is the word covenant. And covenant is what the book is all about. And since I heard him say that, it's like that statement and that word has not left me. And as I've gone through, Noah brought that message in real zeal and in the Spirit of the Lord for us earlier on in the year about this being the year of the Bible. And I'd already sort of determined in my heart to really go through and go cover to cover, front to back. And as I've been going through, particularly the Torah, Joshua, Judges, and now I'm into Isaiah, this word covenant keeps coming up. And this has just become a little bit more precious to me, because when I look at Isaiah, his use of the covenant, he's saying on one hand, you've broken covenant. How could you? But God will not break his covenant. God will keep his covenant. He will remember his covenant. And if any of you have done Word of Life over the years, you'll know there's many covenants. There's the Noahic covenant, the Abrahamic, the Davidic, the Moses covenant. There's been many, many covenants. Catherine and I were even talking about covenants of salt just this week, and the different covenants in the Bible, but he's a covenant-keeping God. And he's saying here, this is my blood of the covenant. And we know it had to be blood because covenants were always sealed in the Old Testament with blood. And looking at this passage, this bit has really stood out to me. He takes the bread, and in breaking it, he gives thanks. And I think, man, what would have been in the heart of Jesus to know what was about to happen? Because the scriptures tell us, knowing that the Father had put all things under his feet, and that he had come from the Father, and that he was going back to the Father. But the road back to the Father was not going to be an easy one. It was going to be a very painful and a difficult one. Nothing like Jesus, the spotless Lamb, had ever experienced before. And he does this prophetic act where he takes it and breaks it, and then he begins to give thanks. And I've often thought these last couple of weeks, what would have been in the heart of Jesus to be giving thanks, knowing this was going to be him? But from there, he goes on and he takes the cup, and this is representative of the blood. And again, it says there, where is he? Verse 27, he took the cup and gave thanks, and he offered it to them. And again, I'm thinking, wow, he knows his body is going to be broken. He knows his blood is going to be poured out. But everything he's done the last 3 years has been working towards this beautiful, precious new covenant. And so Jesus has got in him, elsewhere it says in the scriptures, for the joy set before him, endured the cross. And that passage gets me, and it's too much for my mind to comprehend. For the joy set before him, he endures the cross. And so taking these things of giving thanks, the breaking, giving thanks, and the blood, and he's aware this new covenant is right on the cusp of about to be unleashed and breaking forth. And he says, do this, all of you. It's poured out for the forgiveness of sins. And then they do this interesting thing. So after this thing about talking of betrayal and breaking of body and his blood, and it says they went out, they sung a hymn, and then they went out to the Mount of Olives. And I'm just like, I'm looking at the context, and it's who's going to betray you. Here they are. Jesus has got enough security in the Father to give thanks and to sing a hymn right before all this stuff happens. And I've often thought when Jesus is asleep in the boat and the disciples are panicking, Master, we're going to drown, do you not care we're perishing? I think, how is it that he's in one state of mind and they're in the total opposite? And I think Jesus, the Prince of Peace, knew what the Father had called him to do on the upcoming day, and he was at total peace that it was going to happen. He wasn't fazed, he wasn't worried, and he certainly wasn't in fear because he's the Prince of Peace. And as I've heard that thing about you need to understand the big picture is covenant. God is keeping his covenant from front to back. God is a covenant-keeping God. He's not in the habit of breaking covenant. And when I look at the events that are going on around the world, and nobody really knows what governments are telling the truth on their statistics. Have we beaten this thing? Have we not? Is there a second wave? Is there going to be more waves? And everybody is grasping for truth and for answers to know where we stand in order to get some sense of stability. But really, that's not where our stability comes from. And Jesus said, in this world you have many troubles, but take heart, I have overcome the world. And he's done that with his blood. So when I look at the character and the nature of God, and he has put his love and the extent of his commitment to us on display in the covenant, that gives me a tremendous, an enormous sense of reassurance that no matter what is going on around the world, that I can give thanks, because Jesus went through the worst of what a human being could possibly go through, and yet he gave thanks and he sang. So as we'd normally do on the first Sunday of the month at ALC, we go through the process of communion. And I just encourage you, if you need to pause the video, if you've got some ready in your own home, join me this morning